So good afternoon. I think we should start. So first, as you may have noticed, we have released our homework 2 yesterday, and still on October 5th, right before the fall break. So I remember before the fall break, you need to submit your midterm report of the course project. If you choose to read the papers, send me the list of the papers you're going to read. And if you have if you decide to do the project, you need to form the team and give an intermediate project report. Regarding the details about project, please refer to the course website. And also, please start to look at the homework 1, homework 2 as soon as possible. And considering like our workload, we need to submit 2 things right before the fall break. So the work amount, I believe the work amount is largely reduced. At the same time, I increased the number of the bonus questions. So that means if you're ambitious and think that's too easy, that make you those problems too simple to make you like you're pissed off that and spend time doing some like bonus questions. Right? And also I have released a survey on the on the Canvas, and because I heard some complaints about the hardness and also work amount of the homework problems, so I want to listen to the comments from the general audience, and then I will give some suggestions for any like, common questions, and also if necessary, I could make some adjustment. But overall, this course will not be like too easy, even after adjustment. So please bear with that. I have emphasized this point at the very beginning. And please use the resources, office hours and Canvas. Feel free to ask questions and don't come to office hours until the last minute and then complain I don't get enough help. That's not reasonable, right? Okay. Any questions so far? So I hope you guys can spend like 3 to 5 minutes to finish the survey. Otherwise, I will assume that by default you are comfortable with those problems or homework assignments. I wouldn't make any change. Okay. If you want to complain, you want to express your opinions on that, feel free to do so, because no one knows who make the comments on that. I will seriously look into your comments, and for some reasonable, for some concerns or some common problems, probably will supplement some extra courses. For example, I heard that informally, some people are still like feel sick of the matrix derivatives and vector derivatives. If this is a severe problem, probably we can schedule another class and talking about how to do that and give more examples. But by default, I assume as a grad students, when I point out to you the useful resources you are able to study by yourself.
Where is the link to the survey? I did not see it.
Oh, come to the quiz. So I don't know who designed this system. I really dislike it. I used Piazza before. That's really convenient. But I don't know why they choose this one. It's like infinite blocks, and sometimes I'm confused a lot. Any question? Okay, so let us continue with generalized linear models. So in the previous lectures, we have gone through the concept of the linear model for regression. Although it sounds like linear model, but it actually represents some nonlinear models because we can introduce nonlinear basis functions. You can construct design matrix. Through nonlinear basis functions, you do some transformation of your features so that your model essentially is nonlinear. And then we introduce some special, concepts specialized for Bayesian people, like what is type 2 maximum likelihood estimation, what is empirical Bayesian methods, what is the where does the evidence maximization represent for why it can help you avoid overfitting, right? So please be aware of those concepts, and also talk about how to do the maximum likelihood estimation, and how do you conduct the posterior distribution calculation. Because for linear regression model, it's pretty straightforward. You assign a Gaussian prior, and your likelihood is Gaussian. So when you do the normalization, you calculate posterior distribution is not a Gaussian, right? So now let us switch to another type of important linear models. Linear models for classification. So we're going to introduce logistic regression, probably the most commonly used classifier, more commonly used than neural network, and probabilistic regression, less common than logistic regression, but it's very widely used in statistics, and multi-class regression. How can we extend logistic regression to predict multiple class labels? Right? We call it softmax, and then ordinary regression. I still want to predict multiple classes, but I know there is some like ordinary relationship between different classes. So this can be oftentimes seen in like ranking applications, like you throw a query to your search engine or to Amazon, right? They will return a list of the items or web pages or documents. Obviously, rank 1 document will be higher, more important than rank 2, right? How do we encode such ordinary relationship in classification? If you use like softmax, it's just like symmetric, and each class is not considered as more important than the others. So first, logistic regression. So logistic regression is for a binary classification problem. So basically, it means that we have two classes, C1 or C2, or sometimes we just use 1 to represent C1, 0 to represent C2, right? So it's binary label. And then our model just defines the probability that your class label is C1 or 1. So this probability we denote by a function y of the feature vector phi. Remember, this feature vector could be some nonlinear feature vector. And then we define this probability is a sigmoid activation function of a score. The score is the inner product between some feature vector and your feature vector. That's it. This is logistic regression. So the usage of the sigmoid activation function is to squeeze your score. Remember, score is kind of arbitrary. It's in the whole real line. Right? I just want to squeeze it into a range between 0 and 1. Because it represents a probability that your label is 1. That's the main why we should use the sigmoid activation function. But of course, we can switch the sigmoid to other function that can do the same kind of effect. Like probabilistic regression, we use like Gaussian CDF to do the same thing. So this is the definition of the sigmoid activation function. I believe you are familiar with that because you have done some practice on O0, right? And then given the probability that your class label is 1, you can calculate the probability that your class is 2, which is 0, right? So which is just 1 minus this probability. So it's interesting to memorize the fact that if you subtract 1 by the sigmoid activation function, you will end up with 1 over exponentially to the power of A. So see the difference? The only difference is that if it is about the probability of class in 1, you have an extra minus sign in front of your score. If it's 0, just wipe off the minus sign. That's it. Right? And another very important and interesting property regarding the derivative of the sigma activation function. So if you want to capture the derivative of the sigma activation function over the derivative of the input A, that is 4, it's simply the sigmoid multiplying 1 minus the sigmoid. So it's you just memorize it like this. I just multiply the probability being 1 and the probability being 0. That is the gradient. So we're going to use it to derive the gradient for maximal likelihood estimation. So it's very important, very interesting property. But I believe we have shown that the form of 0, right? So now let us look at how do we estimate a logistic regression model. Again, we'll start with the like non-Bayesian point of view. We just want to get some maximal likelihood estimation first, and today we're not going to talk about like how do we estimate posterior distribution for that, because that requires some approximate inference techniques, which we'll come back to see it like next week or the week after next week. But let us first look at how do we calculate the math estimation. Right. So suppose we are given a set of training examples, which are pairs of the transform feature vectors An and the label Tn. So each label Tn is either 0 or 1, meaning like +2 or +1, right? And then Bn represents some nonlinear basis functions over the original input vector Xn. And then we can calculate the likelihood function as this, right? So because we assume they are IID, so their likelihood is a product of the likelihood for each individual sample. So this is a Bernoulli likelihood, right? So Yn, remember Yn is the probability that your label is 1. So this is Bernoulli likelihood. And here, for convenience, we just represent all the labels in data set as a vector, T1 to Tn, right? This bolded T represents the n-dimensional vector. And then we can maximize the likelihood to find the maximal likelihood estimation, right? And for convenience, we usually take logarithm and then we add a minus sign in front of it so that we can do the minimization, right? So if you take negative logarithm over it and you just take a logarithm in front of it, right? So it ends up with this. It's pretty straightforward. You put this Yn, it has a power of Tn, 1 minus 1 power 1 minus Tn. If you take a logarithm, just move the power into the front. And then if you further take the gradient over this negative log likelihood, it will end up with this summation. So remember, what Tn is just the binary labels which are like constant to the weight vector. So if you calculate the gradient, you only need to calculate gradient with respect to about the logarithm Yn and logarithm 1 minus 1, right? So Yn is a probability. So Yn is a sigmoid activation function of this score, right? So here is where we use the property just mentioned. If you take a logarithm, if you take gradient of a logarithm of Yn, you first apply the chain rule to get 1 over Yn, right? And then you take the gradient of Yn, so it becomes Yn times 1 minus 1, right? So now you can see Yn cancel. Similar kind of calculations can be applied here. So when you manipulate the terms, you end up with this. So it's a summation over all the training examples where each summand, very interesting here, Yn subtracted by Tn, then multiplied with this transform the feature vector. So Yn is what? What is Yn? Yeah, predicted value. So it's predicted probability that your class is 1, right? So you can say, you can consider it as a soft prediction, right? Because you just produce the probability. The larger probability, the closer the probability to 1, the larger the chance you should classify it as 1, right? So you can consider a soft prediction. And the Tn is actual observation, actual label, which is hard label, right? Either 0 or 1. So basically, here just means the difference between your prediction, which is soft, and your actual label, which is hard, right? And then multiplying with this feature vector. And then just adds up all those terms across the training set. So as we'll see later, in general exponential family, if you define generalized linear models, you'll always observe similar kind of structure in calculating the gradient or the logarithmic function. So once we have the gradient, we can use any optimization packages, gradient-based optimization packages like Noble's gradient descent or LBFGS-B, right? You haven't tried them in your homework 1, right? Or conjugate gradient descent, whatever. But here we want to introduce another simple yet very effective object called Newton-Raphson scheme. So here is the updating rule of Newton-Raphson scheme. So basically, they update the weight vector as follows. So each time I subtract the old version of the weight vector by the inverse Hessian of the current weight multiplied with the gradient. So remember Hessian. This Hessian is a positive definite. So when it multiplies with gradient, the gradient is still a descent direction. You can show that. That means you can safely use that to perform any gradient descent-based approaches and guarantees converge. And sometimes, like a smart choice of the square matrix you multiply with the gradient can accelerate your convergence speed. For example, like natural gradient descent. So basically, you're going to choose like smart positive definite matrix, which utilize the geometry structure of your objective function. If you can smartly use that, it can converge much faster than like a vanilla gradient descent. But those are related to like optimization theory. I'm not going to tell you the detail about that, and just give you a hint. And here we choose this matrix as inverse Hessian. And to see why we should use inverse Hessian and to see how it's called Newton-Raphson, we can consider linear model for regression. We apply the linear model for regression this Newton-Raphson update and see why it converges so fast. Right? So in linear regression model, remember our likelihood is a Gaussian distribution, right? So it is exponential to the power of some like square term. You multiply them together, you actually add up all the exponents, right? So if you take logarithm and take negative, you end up with this one, square summation, and take half. Right? So, and then now this is our objective function. Remember, this is negative log likelihood. And then if we calculate the gradient of our objective function, you end up with this. We haven't done this before. Right? If you just calculate the gradient of this square summation, you use the chain rule. You first take the gradient over the square term and move 2 from here and cancel its half here. And then apply the chain rule, and
end up with this. Okay. And further, we can represent this in terms of matrix vector product, and this relates to the design matrix phi. The design matrix, remember, design matrix is so suppose our transform feature vector is m dimensional, right? So the design matrix is n by m. Each row corresponds to a transform feature vector. So it is phi1 transpose phi2 transpose until phi n transpose. Keep this in mind. Okay. And if you manipulate terms in terms of in terms of their design matrix W, that with this. So phi transpose phi times the weight vector W minus phi transpose P. And also, every time we double check the consistency of matrix sizes. So as we mentioned, like phi is n by n matrix, right? And T is n by 1 vector. So you see phi transpose T, right? You cannot do like phi T. Then the matrix product won't match in sizes. Right? And here as well, right? Phi transpose phi will be like n by n. So it's not phi transpose. And W, the weight vector, is n by 1 because we have n basis functions, and then you multiply this n by matrix, n by m matrix, and n by 1 vector, and that was n by 1. So they're consistent. So this is the gradient. And now if you want to calculate the hashing, this is gradient. We need to take gradient over gradient. So the only term that relates to our weight vector is this one, right? So if you take the gradient again, just like this, you just end up with this. It's phi transpose phi. So phi transpose phi is n by n. Remember, our weight vector is n by 1, so phi transpose phi must be n by n. So it's consistent, right? And also, phi transpose phi must be a positive and definite, right? And now let us use our Hessian matrix and the gradient to update the weight vector following Newton-Raphson's rule, right? So this is a Hessian matrix, and this is our gradient. So this is a phi transpose phi inverse, and the gradient is phi transpose phi W over W subtracted from phi transpose P, right? So now, if you just multiply them into this parentheses, and you will see this one, when you multiply together, you end up with W O, so they cancel. So all the remaining term is just this phi transpose phi inverse phi transpose P. And this is actually the solution of the least square. And we have derived in the last lecture, right? If we directly set the gradient of your weight vector to be 0, solve it, you get this. That means if you use this Newton-Raphson method to update, using one step, you solve the problem. So you can imagine like it converges fast, right? It converges very fast. And but why? Why intuitively? Why it converges fast? What's the basic idea there? So we're not gonna like prove that the convergence is like superlinear or whatever. Right? That will waste another class, another lecture. But just give you a hint. So essentially, the Newton-Raphson method can be applied to optimize any like objective function. But the idea is that at any point, they just locally approximate this function as a quadratic function. Then they use a solution of this quadratic function to update. So what is the general form of quadratic function? Suppose this is your objective function, right? So basically, if I want to minimize my function like this, it's called quadratic function. If I want to minimize it, I can directly solve the gradient being 0. You end up with this Newton-Raphson result. But that's why if we apply this for the linear regression, remember the the linear regression problem, the objective function, it is a quadratic optimization problem. So that's why you use that. You update your that with the solution just one step. But the issue is that when we extend it to like other function, which is not quadratic function, each time I just approximate locally as a quadratic function, then we cannot guarantee you can get the optimal solution in one step. You need to do it iteratively. But in general, there's some like theory can prove that the convergence speed will be much faster than using like ordinary gradient-based method like linear search. Okay? Does it make sense? So now let us look at how we obtain the Newton-Raphson update for logistic regression. So this is our objective function. We take the negative logarithm over the likelihood of the n data points. If you take the gradient, this is our gradient of the objective function, right? If you take the gradient again, you get the hashing. So the calculate hashing for the gradient for logistic objective function is a little bit I mean, it's not as simple as linear regression, but it's not hard. So basically, the key is that how do you compute the gradient with respect for the y minus t, right? T is the label is constant, right? The only issue is that how do you compute the gradient with respect to the label y, the predicted probability. Remember, y is yx1 to yxn, right? And each yx1, say, is the probability that we predict is to be 1. So this is a sigmoid activation function. Right? So that means if you calculate gradient for each term here, so you can see if you first take the gradient of each yn in y, right? And then use the property of the sigmoid activation function is gradient yn times y minus 1. But yn is a sigmoid activation function of the score W transpose. Fit in, right? So according to the chain rule, you need to take the gradient of the score, right? So which turns out to be fit in, right? Because we take gradient with respect to W. It's fit in. That's why you're gonna multiply with fit in transpose. Because this fit in comes here, right? Just call it here. So the other fit in you need to multiply it horizontally because this is the matrix. This is hash matrix. It's not scalar. This is a Jacobian matrix. So everyone got the general idea, right? So if you want to double check that, just to do it. If you get a sense, the general sense, it's really straightforward to derive this. And then for this summation, we can further represent it in terms of the matrix vector product in this way. So phi again is a design matrix, and R here is a diagonal matrix. In this diagonal matrix, each element in the diagonal is this yn minus 1, yn times y minus 1 here. So to see this, you can simply verify. So remember our design matrix, which is n by n, right? Each row is a transformed feature vector, right? So that means by transpose is something like that, right? Each column is our transformed feature vector. Then you multiply with this diagonal matrix, R1, 1 to R, and then multiply again with phi, the original phi, right? So it's phi1 transpose to phi n transpose. Just do the block matrix product. You know that with this. Just apply the basic matrix multiplication rule. You know with this. This is pretty convenient, right? And when you check the consistency of matrix size, you end up with n by n matrix, right? Because Y transpose is n by n, right? And R is n by n diagonal matrix. Remember, each element is yn times 1 minus 1 in the diagonal. So I have like n, big N examples here. It must be n by n. And phi is n by n. So we multiply together, you get the n by n matrix. So everything looks reasonable, right? The remaining things is that we just substitute the Hessian and the gradient. Just substitute the result we have obtained here for the Hessian gradient. So this is a Hessian, and this is a gradient. Okay? And we can manipulate them. We can arrange the terms a little bit. We want to move this phi transpose R phi inverse in the front. So inside here we get this. And of course we can merge them in terms of phi transpose R, and we get a vector Z, which seems a bit complex. So why we would like to arrange the terms in this way? We can look at the terms and we contrast it to our linear regression updating case. Right? So linear regression, I have already been able to memorize it here, which is y transpose phi inverse y transpose 1. 100% correct. So what's the difference and what's the common points between the two updates? So first we can say, okay, looks like the two updates, they both, like first, take the inverse. Oh, sorry, this should be inverse. We need to first take the inverse of this Hessian-like matrix, right? And then multiply a vector. And but the only difference is that in the logistic regression, we multiply an actual diagonal matrix R here. If we just set R to be like identity matrix, they're the same, right? But here we know R is not an identity matrix. Each element is yn times 1 minus 1n, right? And then in this vector, we finally multiply 2 phi transpose here, right? And phi transpose in the logistic regression update is phi transpose R, and here we have phi transpose. So again, we have some extra diagonal matrix R, and they have some z and y. So it looks like z is a counterpart of y, right? In the linear regression case, y is just like continuous output, continuous observations. It's pretty straightforward. Now let's look at what does z represent. So although z looks like a bit more complicated, but z expresses a kind of similar meaning to y. Why? Because you can see the first term of z is like phi w overburden of w. This is your soft prediction. And then you subtract it by this inverse of R, inverse of this diagonal matrix, y minus p. Y is what? Y is your soft prediction. Okay? Sigma W transpose by n, each element, right? Subtracted by the hard label. So basically, if you multiply R inverse with y, you can consider it as kind of a prediction as well, but weighted by the diagonal elements in R. R is a diagonal matrix. So this is a prediction. This is a prediction. You can consider conceptually these two predictions are cancelled. I mean, they're not exactly zero, but conceptually cancelled. Then the remaining thing is just R inverse T. T is the observation, is observed output, right? So now you can say actually Z expresses a kind of output, and Y is the output in linear regression as well.
Wait, can you explain why they cancel out again?
No, it's just conceptually cancel. Yeah.
Why conceptually cancel?
Because this phi W transpose, WO version, is kind of prediction, right? But it's kind of score. It's not like some label or probability of taking some label, but it represents some prediction, right? Unsqueezed prediction, right? And this one is like squeezed prediction, then weighted by this diagonal matrix. It represents another type of another form of prediction.
Okay.
They are not exactly the same. In most cases, it won't be the same. But conceptually, you can think they are like cancelled in some degree, right? And the remaining term is just R inverse T. T is our hard label observed. So weighted by R inverse. So it still expresses the output, right? So now you say, okay, this Z represents kind of a representation of the output. And Y in the linear regression is just a continuous output. So like they are kind of like counterpart to each other, right?
Are those weights on the diagonal at some point?
No, not necessary. So what is weights in R? R is diagonal matrix. So the first diagonal element is Y1, Y minus Y1. Second is Y2, Y minus Y2, until Yn, Y minus Yn, right? Each element is just the probability that you predicted to be 1 multiplied the probability that you predict to be 0. Just some weights, but you cannot ensure that their summation is 1. But now we can see that this R is not constant. It depends on the weight vector as well, right? And also this actual R actually takes the weighting effect over those design matrix and also over the prediction. That's why this approach is also called iterative related least squares. Why is it called iterative related least squares? First, least squares because its updating form resembles the updating form for linear regression in some degree, right? And then we must consider some weighting scheme which comes from this R. And each time, because your weight changes, then R changes. That is why it's called re-weighting. Does it make sense? So this updated formula, if we organize the terms in this way, we can build out some like elegant connection to the updates of the linear regression model. But if you do not follow this way, and you'll feel, wow, it's so complicated. It's so complicated. So these are about the logistic regression. How do you get the maximum life estimation? You can apply the Newton-Raphson's method. Start with arbitrary initial value for this W. You just iterative update it until convergence. And your homework 2, you are required to implement your logistic regression maximum likelihood estimation using this approach. Okay. So I highly recommend you to follow this derivation after the lecture, and then consider this mapping. I mean, how is R viewed, and how is Z explained as like some weird version of the response or output. Right? And then now let us extend our binary classification problem to multi-class classification problem. So suppose we have k classes. We do not only have 2 labels. We can have like 3 labels, 4 labels, even 5 labels. Right? So, and then how can we build up a linear model to make prediction? So idea is straightforward. For each particular class K, we introduce a separate feature weight vector WK. Using that, we can calculate the score of predicting this example to be class K. The score is just the inner product between your class-specific weight vector wk and the feature vector k. Okay? And then one model the probability that your instance or your example takes each class ck. And to do that, we first take exponential over your score and then normalize it to ensure that it is between 0 and 1, because this is probability. It must be between 0 and 1. Right? And take exponential is just to ensure this denominator is always, its numerator is always a positive number. And this fraction, exponential term over the summation of exponential term, is also referred to as the softmax function. And it's like if you use like TensorFlow or use like all kinds of neural networks to do the classification, they always throw out the terms called softmax. Softmax is given. You can consider as a generalization of the logistic regression. And again, we can calculate the gradient of your softmax function, so yk, over the score for any class table, so aj. So aj is wj transpose k, right? It does not necessarily to be equal to ak transpose k. When we calculate the gradient, I want you to check after the class, right? So you have this form. So yk times ikj. Ikj is a kj element in the identity matrix. That means if k is not equal to j, this ikj is simply 0. Right? If k equals to j, that means it's on diagonal, then it is just 1. Then it returns back to the logistic regression case. Okay? And try to verify that's all. And then we can write down the likelihood given a set of observer data. And suppose we have like n ID data, right? Your likelihood is a product over each point's likelihood. And for each point, the probability is simply the categorical distribution, right? So this is a chance, this is a probability that your examples taking class k and take the power of tnk. So tn is a one-hot vector. Remember we mentioned when we reviewed the categorical distribution. So there's only one element in this one-hot vector is 1, right? All the others are 0. So it's naturally can be represented in categorical distribution like this. So it can be further written like this. And if you want to find out the maximal likely estimation, you take the logarithm over the likelihood and calculate the gradient. It will look like this. And also, you can calculate the hashing matrix as well. So this just gives you the hashing matrix. First, you take the gradient with respect to wk, and then take the gradient with respect to wj. But if you set wk equals wj, it's inside one block. If you take k is not equal to j, it's not in the diagonal block, it's in a off diagonal block, right? For all those calculations, if you get familiar with the procedure, how you derive the hashing for logistic regression, this is pretty straightforward. I'm not sure of the detail here. I'll leave it as an exercise for you. So these are about like multi-class on logistic regression. Any questions so far? Okay. So now let's discuss another way to classify binary labels. We call it probabilistic regression. So as we previously mentioned, right? So basically, our classification results are determined by this score, the inner product between some weight vector and our feature vector. And then because we want to calculate the probability that you take the label to be 1, we need some function which squeeze this real value score to a range 0 and 1, right? For logistic regression, we choose the logistic function. But for probabilistic regression, we choose it to be the standard CDF, the CDF function for normal distribution. So what is CDF function? Cumulative distribution, cumulative density function, right? CDF basically is the probability that your random variable is less than or equal to some value A, right? So obviously, when A approaches to infinity, it's 1, right? Because this becomes some event must happen. If you take A minus A to be minus infinity, it will be 0, right? This will become impossible event. Right? And if you write it down, it can be written as an integral function. Right? So the integrand will be the density, standard normal density, and the parameter or the input of this function is on the upper limit of the integral. Right? Any question?
So you use this for regression and how about the gradient? What is that gradient?
Yeah, I will leave this as an exercise. So first, it's pretty straightforward to calculate the gradient for the CDF, right? So what's the gradient for CDF? It's PDF, right? Then the remaining thing is just chain rule. So I don't think it's necessary for us to review those things again, right? I forgot whether I have asked you guys to implement probability regression in the homework. Perhaps it's in a bonus question, or perhaps not. But anyway, if it is a bonus question, I think it's pretty easy. Any question? No, it's not guaranteed. So actually, person speaking, I would rather think like logistic regression is better. Why? I'll show you in this figure. This is a very good question. I don't need to talk about my motivation. So this is curves for the CDF, Gaussian CDF, and the logistic function. So red curve represents the CDF. So you can see both functions which they squeeze a real domain value into a range 0 and 1, right? But what can we observe from this figure by contrasting their curves? So this green one is the logistic, and this red one is probability.
The probability is more aggressive.
In what?
In classifying either 1 or 0.
Yeah, exactly right. So you can see if your if the absolute value of your input is very large, so both curves like tends to give you the either 0 or 1, right? But actually, this is not very good. We want us to be able to differentiate the capability of classifying a label to be 1 or 0, right? If my classification score is like -10 and -15 on the both functions, well, their probability is just probably is just both are like 10 to -3. There's no difference here, right? But one is difference. One is difference in many usage. For example, I want to throw my score into the subsequent classifiers of subsequent models. One, their input are different, right? But when we are close to 0, when we are approaching close to 0, from this side and from this side, we can see that at this point, say like 2.5, right? So obviously, the logistic regression will give you a quite significant value. Although it's close to 0, but it's quite significant, more significant than the probability. So you can see the difference, right? And similarly, here, say suppose your classification score is about 3. Well, the probability regression just tell you, okay, just predict with probability 1. Probability is 1, right? But for logistic, there's still some room here to compare, right? See, this might be like 0.9, and this might be 0.95, but here it could be like 0.99. So difference between the so we can tell more significant difference between the classification scores when they are like far away from 0. That's the benefit of logistic regression, and perhaps this is why logistic regression is more widely used in practice. Any question?
So why is the profit useful?
Oh, it's just it's yet another model, and probability regression is originally it's not used to like predict things like that. Instead, is used to predict the logarithm of something. It's in a survival analysis. It's another topic. But from the computer science, people say, okay, it's just an alternative way to do the binary classification. But the problem of the probability likelihood can be adjusted. Like I do not use like I'm not necessary to use the standard normal distribution, right? I can multiply with variance top, right? Then you can say I can adjust the behavior of this curve so that it can like be more consistent with the logistic regression. There's some kind of ways to fix the issue. Okay. And using probability regression is convenient for another reason. It's particularly convenient for Bayesian device. Why? Because it has an equivalent augmented model. So basically, for the probability regression, we can consider the sampling procedure is like this. So first, I calculate the score, right? And then use this score to sample binary label from some monomial likelihood. So remember, this psi A and 1 minus psi A is just probability. But if but this is equivalent to another sampling procedure. That means for each sample, first generate a latent variable z from some Gaussian distribution with the score as mean and 1 as variance. And then I determine the label t according to a step distribution. So what is step distribution? Just look at the sign of your sample z. If z is less than or equal to 0, I just report t to be 0. Otherwise, I just report t to be 1. This is called step distribution. So in many cases, like in Bayesian inference, this could be like even more convenient to use. That's another benefit of using the probability regression. And you can prove the equivalence between the two models by marginalizing out z. So basically, if you calculate the joint distribution, pz given a, multiplying the pt given z, ez, you end up with the pt given a, right? It's just the joint distribution. You marginalize out z. When you do this, you will recover the original likelihood of the probability regression. Right? And as to why, it's your exercise. So these are about the probability regression. So now let us extend this binary classification task again to ordinary regression task. W transpose what?
So these three samples from normal distribution with mean equal to A and A equal to just the value of the inner border of the teaching line and the weight.
Yeah.
So it can be anything because we see between 0 and 1.
I mean, what?
So it won't be between 0 and 1. So
No, it won't be between 0 and 1. But we do not, z is like in a whole real domain. Z is some latent variable, but our label is sampled according to z. The label is either 0 or Yeah, and also it does not give you some probability here. Your chance that t being 1, it won't give you this. It just gives you a sampling procedure how you arrive at some binary label. But z itself is not some probability. Does it make sense? Okay. So suppose we still want to predict k classes. K is bigger than 2, but those classes have some ordering relationship, like C1 less than C2 until Ck. Right? This is actually pretty common in prediction involving ranks. Okay, you want to rank a set of documents related to some specific query, or want to rank, I want to see the disease progression. Right? Like Alzheimer's disease can be classified into 3 stages: normal, mild cognitive impairment, and Alzheimer's disease. So you can see these 3 labels, they have some ordering relationship, right? So if the class labels have some ordering relationship, then it won't be appropriate to use like softmax to do that, because softmax is kind of symmetric. I do not consider one class should be in front of the other one. It doesn't matter. Now, how do we encode the ordering information into a prediction procedure? This is how the ordering regression is motivated. Right? So idea is pretty straightforward. I first partition the real domain into a set of ordered regions. So the real domain is something like axis, right? X-axis. So it's from minus infinity to infinity. So just partition this x-axis into k regions. So first region will be like minus infinity to b1, and second region will be b1 to b2, and third region is b2 to b3, and blah blah blah. Okay. And now I still calculate my score, which is the inner product between some weight vector and phi, and then we sample a latent variable z from this Gaussian distribution. The same thing, right? And then I check which region z falls in. See, if z falls in the kth region, then I report the label to be k. That's the idea. So see, because those regions are ordered, then the label are ordered. The convenience is that we do not introduce like k different weight vectors. We still have only one weight vector. We'll just look at which region this latent variable z falls in. And in turn, we produce the category for prediction. So this is the ordinary regression. And this is a typical Bayesian model because we assume some unknown latent random variable. Okay, these are about like the binary classification and the multi-class classification. So now let us try to extend this framework to the exponential family. We call it generalized linear models. So let us first write down the form of the exponential family distribution. So for simplicity, it is we just ignore some like the function solely depends on t. Right? We just assume it's 1, and also in the exponent it is eta. Eta is natural parameter transpose t itself. So basically, I mean, rigorous speaking, it should be some like a sufficient statistic over t, right? But here we just for simplicity we just use t, and you can extend it to sufficient statistic. There's nothing different. And then subtracted by this g function, g of eta. You know this is log normalizer, right? And according to the property of the exponential family distributions, we know the expectation of t here is the derivative of the log normalizer over the derivative of the natural parameter. It's a nice property of the exponential family. Right? And we define, of course, we define this expectation as y. It's just a notation. So remember, we mentioned that in many exponential family distributions, we usually use this expectation to parameterize their model rather than natural parameters. That means to us, this mean parameters sounds more natural, and natural parameters is not that natural. That's an interesting point. So now I want to put some linear models into this exponential family distribution. How should we do that? Also, first, we should be aware that there is a mapping between the natural parameters and mean parameters, and the latter sounds more natural to us. So natural parameters can be calculated from some mapping psi. We apply the mapping psi to the mean parameters to get natural parameters. And keep this in mind. Psi is from the expectation of mean to the natural parameters. And now, in our linear model, generally we can define this mean, the expectation of the t, this mean, as some function of this classification score, right? Or prediction score. This score is the inner product between the weight vector and the feature vector. So now if we choose this function f as the inverse of psi, so remember psi is mapping from the mean to the natural parameter. Right? If we choose f to be the inverse of psi, and we can see what can I get. Right? So then the natural parameter, because this is psi of y, right? So y is f of this classification score. F is inverse, so we can say psi applied to psi inverse and applied to this classification score. So that's cancelled, right? It's cancelled, then now is a linear model over the natural parameters. So what is generalized linear models? Essentially, it just models the natural parameter as an inner product between the weight vector and your feature vector. That is generalized linear models. And F inverse is called link function. So this is kind of a little awkward because F inverse is psi. F is inverse of psi, and F inverse of psi inverse of psi inverse is psi. So it is actually the link function psi, which links the mean to the natural parameters. It's called link function. In other words, in the practice you have done in your homeworks, you're asked to find out the mapping from the mean parameters to natural parameters. These are also link functions to build up your generalized linear models. So now, if we want to find out the maximum likelihood for the estimation over like n training data, right? So remember this is our likelihood, and eta is now modeled as W transpose by n, right? So if you take a logarithm over your likelihood, which will be this eta n Tn subtracted by the log normalizer of eta n. So eta is not constant right now. Eta is determined by the natural parameter is determined by the weight vector W, because each eta n in our generalized linear models is modeled as W transpose n, right? And then you end up with your objective function, and if you take the gradient with respect to W, Tn is constant, right? So you only need to take gradient of the natural parameter over W, and take gradient of log normalizer over W. And according to the chain rule, you can first take the gradient with respect to eta n, and then multiply with the gradient of eta n with respect to W. Right? And for this one, it's simply because eta n is inner product, right? So its gradient with respect to W is just Bn. It's a feature vector, right? And for this one, what is this one? What is the gradient of your log normalizer with respect to your natural parameter? is expectation, right? Expectation of t. So we denote expectation of t as our y, right? That's our definition here, right? So now using these results, we can get the general form of your gradient of the log likelihood of generalized linear models. So you can say this is summation, and each summand is a feature vector for instance, multiplying with the difference between the ground truth output and your prediction. Right? So you can see the consistency here. This is consistent with logistic regression. It's consistent with your linear regression. And as an exercise, I would like to encourage you to find out the link function for logistic regression and Poisson regression. And one question is that if your natural parameter is not a scalar, it's a vector, then what should you do? So if your natural parameter is not scalar, it's just like eta 1 and eta 2. What should you do? What should you do to build up your normalized, your generalized linear models? You just introduce W1 and W2, right? So your model eta 1 is W1 transposed by N, and eta 2 is W2 transposed by N. Right? So hope you won't be confused when we try to do this. We try to find a link function for the Poisson regression, because in that case you have two natural parameters. But to use our linear model, we just model each natural parameter as an inner product between some wave vector and feature vector. Okay. So now I have come through the generalized linear models. So here are a few things you should be aware, you should know. First of all is design matrix, how to obtain maximal likelihood estimation for linear regression, and how to calculate posterior distribution and predictive distribution for linear regression. This is pretty straightforward because you just multiply with Gaussians. But you should be aware of the difference between the predictive distribution and posterior distribution. What is empirical base? And what is type 2 MLE? Those are special to Bayesian religion. And what is Newton-Raphson method for logistic regression? What is probability regression? And what is the equivalent Dixon variable model of probability regression? How to conduct multi-pass classification, submaps, right? And what is generalized linear model? What is link function? What is the essence of generalized linear models? In an exponential family scenario, you just model the natural parameter as a linear function of your feature vector. That's it. So any questions so far regarding the linear models? All right. If there's no questions, we're gonna start with another topic. So we have introduced a set of simple but flexible models, linear models. Although linear here just means like impose a linear structure. That by no means you have pure linear models. You can use like feature transformation. You can use nonlinear basis functions to build up very complicated nonlinear predictors. But using linear models, using linear structures can help you to develop a simple yet efficient estimation algorithm. And now we'll jump to an even broader framework or language to design your probabilistic models. It's called probabilistic graphical models. So this is a huge topic. So this topic is definitely worth another lecture, or not lecture, another semester of the class. But here we just cover the fundamental, most important things to give you a hint on that, because this is an active research area, and thousands of papers and research and still active right now. So what is the probabilistic graphic model? So you can roughly consider it as a marriage between the graph theory and the probability theory. So we use graphs to represent probabilistic models, and also use graphs to enlighten us or help us to design inference algorithms. Because you'll see, like, many classical posterior inference algorithm can be seen as some message passing protocols of graphs. And the graphical structure reflects the conditional dependency of the models. So basically, you'll see that if we use like Bayes rule, we can expand any drawn distribution. If you do not impose any assumption, like your full expansion of Bayesian, your Bayes rule, it encodes everything, right? But nothing special here. So the key idea of your probabilistic models to assume some conditional dependence in your drawn probability model. Given this conditional dependence, you incorporate your own knowledge and your beliefs about the right models, and which in turn are reflected in the graphical structures. And the graphical structures to represent this conditional dependence will be, like, as we'll say, will be very intuitive and very convenient and very expressive. Because for quite a long time, whenever I build up some probabilistic models, I will first, I won't write down the drawn probability first. I will first draw a probabilistic graphic model. But right now, I have got used to write down drawn probability first. And also, the inference relies on graphical structures. You'll see that many proximate inference algorithms, they just utilize the local structures of your graph, and then propagate your results through the graph structures into the neighboring nodes and propagate to the nodes which are far away. So with the help of the graphic structures, the inference algorithm will be easier to implement, to apply, to analyze, and to improve. Because given a graph, it gives you more intuition. And neural networks are just special instances of graphic models. So here's the outline of this topic. So the probabilistic graphic models in general can be roughly categorized into two types. One is called the Bayesian networks. So the pioneer or the inventor of Bayesian networks is Julia Burr in UCLA, and he got his tuning work. I think one of the major contributions in the creation of Bayesian networks. And also another major contribution is causality. Well, causality is far from being practical. Although philosophical is kind of like amazing. But Bayesian networks are everywhere. Pretty much sure it's everywhere. And another type of probabilistic graphic model is undirected graphic models called Markov random fields. So Markov random fields, these concepts are very, very early. It's very widely used in image denoising, image tasks. And in the Bayesian networks, we'll introduce how do we use the graphic representation for Bayesian networks. It is essentially a directed graph without any cyclics. It's called acyclic directed graphs. And we'll see that how this acyclic graph encodes the conditional dependence. And how do we know whether an arbitrary set of random variables given another set of random variables are independent to a third set of random variables. So as long as you have a Bayesian network, you can use a simple rule, it's called deception, to give your conclusion. And sometimes it's also referred to like a Bayes fault algorithm. So this is perhaps the most important contribution, one of the most important contributions of Professor do they occur? And then Markov blanket you can consider as like the minimum set of the random variables which separate a particular random variable from all the remaining random variables. Meaning that given the Markov blanket of a random variable, it is independent to all the remaining random variables. And for Markov random field, we will introduce, you will see that Markov random field can provide you a much simpler way to show the conditional independence. And also, it has relationship to directed graphs, that is Bayesian networks, but unfortunately, these two types of graphing models are not totally equivalent, meaning that some Bayesian network cannot be represented by Markov random field, and some Markov random field cannot be represented by Bayesian networks. And based on these graphing models, we're going to introduce inference algorithms. And we'll introduce a very conceptually very useful structure called factor graph. Namely, how do you encode your likelihood terms into your graphs? And then, based on factor graph, we introduce a sum product algorithm, which calculate the marginal distribution for any node in your graphical model. And max product, which can be considered as a generalization of your sum product algorithm. Given that, you can find out which setting of your random variable can give you the maximal probability. This is very, very important for like a structure prediction, sequence prediction problem. Like in many NLP tasks, you want to parse your sentence and label each node in your word, right? This is actually a typical structure prediction problem. In the prediction, we always need to find out what are the set or sequence of the labels of the words that give you the maximal probability. And we'll first go through the Bayesian networks. And given that we still have 3 minutes, so let us just review the base rule. Right? So this is a base rule. For any two random variables, x1, x2, and x1 and x2 can be random vectors. Right? We can calculate this conditional distribution by dividing the drawn probability of x1 and x2 by the marginal distribution, marginal probability of x1. Right? In other words, if we want to calculate the drawn probability of x1 and x2, we can multiply the marginal distribution of x1, multiply the conditional distribution of x2, conditional x1, right? So we can, and then that means like for an arbitrary set of random variable, x1 to xn, we can expand it. We can fully expand it through this base rule. Right? How can we expand it? We first multiply the marginal probability of x1, and then multiply the probability of x2 conditional x1. Then multiply the probability of x3 conditional x1, x2. We just continue until we multiply the probability of xn conditional x1 to xn minus 1. Right? This is just a simple application of the base rule. And as to why, just verify, right? x1 multiplying x2 given x1 is drawn probability of x1, x2. And then multiply the x3 conditional x1, x2 is drawn probability of x1 to 3. You just multiply, finally end up with this drawn probability. Then the question is that, can we represent, because we can factorize the drawn probability into a product of multiple terms, right? In each conditional term, we know the variable is dependent on the variables which are conditioned on, right? So we can represent this conditional relationship in terms of edges in the graph. That's how the Bayesian networks are motivated. So we'll get to the detail on Thursday. See you on Thursday.